This is one of the biggest mistakes that I see a lot of up and coming remote sales pros and sales reps actually make, which is if you understand this correctly, not only do you position yourself for long term success in your sales career, but most importantly, you actually avoid one of the craziest and gnarliest paths that a lot of sales reps go through, which is burnout. So, I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. If you understand this concept right here, this is what's going to help you go from sales being just another, shiny object where you try for a year or 2 years, maybe 3 years, to something that can be a very long life career, talking 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years. Now, what I'm talking about here is what I call understanding your energetic rhythms. Understanding your energetic rhythms. So, tomorrow I'm actually going on vacation. And I'm really excited. I'm actually really looking forward to it. And I want to record this video before I go into vacation because the truth is, guys, I'm coming out of a 90-day sprint. Like Q1 was just double down, tunnel vision, build, build, build. And the honest truth is, I'm tired. I'm freaking tired. I'm exhausted. But that's okay because I've engineered and really designed this quarter to be like that. And alongside those big pushes in my career during these seasons, I learned from my mistakes earlier on, which is, it sounds so simple, but I take a proper vacation for about a week. Now, I remember the first 1 to 2, 3 years, I think it was a 3.5 year sprint where I never took a real vacation as a sales rep. And the problem was mentally, through willpower, through pure discipline, I was able to do it. But it came at a cost. I remember back in 2022, I literally had to take a 4-month sabbatical because I was so burnt out with sales, so burnt out with business. I was just in a place where I was like beaten time and time and time again. And the only enemy was actually myself. And I see this with a lot of you guys. I see it with a lot of sales reps who, you guys are excited, you're motivated, you want to prove yourself, you want to get to a point where you're in a position to really just grind it out and hustle. And while that mindset on paper sounds great, what a lot of people don't talk about is one of the biggest obstacles for people in this game is they don't know how to properly rest, rejuvenate, and recover. So that's what I want to talk about in today's video. And here's the thing, guys. This is definitely just more of a raw, rant. But I wanted to capture this because I don't see this talked about enough in the remote and online sales world. And to be honest, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of people just talking about the hustle culture and the grind culture and, do whatever it takes. Because the truth is it works, but it is not a long-term strategy. In fact, oftentimes it's really just in my opinion, an immature strategy to be able to get to your results quicker in the short term, but actually takes you off the right path in the long term. So I want to talk about the first point. Here's the first thing I want you guys to understand, which is sales professionals are athletes. We are athletes. And here's what I mean by that. So I want you guys to think about an athlete, right? Let's use basketball for example. I balled growing up, and one of the things that I always watched during basketball is there was an on season, there was a preseason, and there was an off season, right? And when you're on season, you're locked in, you're ready to go. You're studying your game tape. You're pushing hard. You're going to practice. You're implementing the things that you were practicing in the game, and you're making improvements. But even the top basketball players like Stephen Curry, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, they all had their times where they would have off season. Now, keep in mind, the Black Mamba, MJ, sometimes during their off season they were still working. It's not to say that you don't necessarily work during your off season. It just means you have to change the intention of what that work might look like. And so, one of the things that I've really started to understand is if I don't properly design my off season just as much as my on season, it leads to a road to burnout. And why burnout isn't good is because oftentimes people, when they go through burnout, they don't actually come back. They don't come back. They change careers, they self sabotage, maybe they even continue going, but they're operating at like 50% of their potential. And my intention with you is I can help bring some of my past mistakes and past failures so that you can tap into 100% of your potential in sales and business and in life. And I use this framework when I think about sales and business, which is like in basketball, we have practice. So all basketball players, they have their team, they practice, they go through the motions of improving certain skill sets one at a time, right? So maybe they're working on, let's say, their jumper, right? And there's intentional design, intentional practice to improve that one skill set. And when you go from, let's say, shooting 25% on the field to shooting 35% on your field goals, that improvement was only because and caused by intentional practice. So that's the first one. It's like practice, right? Just like in sales, we have to do, the role plays. We have to, study the courses, the books, get coaching. We want to have proper practice in place so we can solve one skill set at a time. Maybe for you, it's improving your discovery. Maybe if for you, it's improving your pitch or handling objections. That will get you from that 25% closing rate to that 35, 40% closing rate, right? So we need intentional practice, because if we don't do it, then we might improve, but it's not actually permanent. It might be a temporary improvement, right? So we all, as sales athletes, need practice. Number two, what else do we need? We need the actual game, right? The actual implementation. So Steph Curry, when he's improving, let's say, his three-pointers, he practices first in the game, and then he practices first in his practice, and then he goes into the game and implements. So for you as a sales athlete, okay, I know I need to focus on my jumper. Now it's time for me to actually start working on this in the game. If you only practice and you don't implement in the game, then nothing really good comes out of it because you're not implementing. The real feedback, the real learning, the real progress actually happens in the game when you implement. Now, you might improve when you're doing the role plays, right? You might be working on your objection handling. But if you don't actually apply, you don't actually implement, you don't actually follow through on improving that skill set during the game, then you're really minimizing 80% of your learnings. 80-20 rule here, right? The 20% of the time, aka the game, has 80% of the learning. So we got to go into the actual game. You have the practice, you have the game, and then what's next? You have your recovery, right? You have your recovery. So all the top superstar athletes know that it's not just what they do in the game, but it's what they actually do off the court, right? So you see these athletes, they're taking ice baths, they're taking their day off for their families, right? Their intentional recovery is also a huge part of the equation, right? They have all these personal trainers and nutrition and all these things to help them prime what is going to get them to the next level, right? And so I want us to really think about that, because this is, I think, one of the missing pieces for all sales reps, and this is me including. I know I can do this better, is when we actually have intentional rest, recovery, rejuvenation. That's where the magic happens. When you're in the gym, the muscle gains is not from just the gym and you working out and you pounding the pavement with those weights. The muscle growth comes during the sleep. The muscle growth comes during when you're just resting and having good nutrition. The muscle growth is just as much understanding when you have your rest days as much as when you're actually, practicing and doing the game. And a lot of sales reps fail to do this. They don't allow their minds to actually recover and have the learnings. Because in science, when we think about memory and we think about muscle memory and we think about, our learning actually comes off or comes into fruition when our mind is allowed to be at rest and around really allows our neurological pathways to rewire properly, right? So for us, here's the thing. We don't give our minds proper space and margin to solidify the learnings that we were going hard in. So if you're working 6 or 7 days out of the week, just pushing 8 to 10 plus hour days, and you don't give your mind the proper rest, you don't actually allow it to fully realize all the things that you're learning, because it's not just a conscious intellectual practice. A lot of this learning actually comes from our subconscious mind and allows, rapid learning is actually when you're not, doing the call reviews, you're not doing the role plays, when you're not doing the sales reps or the reps during the sales calls, right? So for us, we have to get really intentional about rest. And I don't mean resting as in like you going out there and, playing a bunch of video games, or you going out there and consuming your mind with like cheap dopamine. That's not real rest. Real rest is actually when you're doing nothing. It's actually in the idleness of it all. It's when things are actually kind of boring, right? So I coach a lot of sales reps, and a lot of the times, like I respect and admire their work ethic to work 7 days a week. But one of the biggest pieces of advice I tell them is like, hey, you need to engineer when you're going to go balls to the wall, pushing, grinding. And then you also need to engineer when you have like what I call like a pull week, where you're resting, taking the reins back in and allowing yourself to really reflect, right? And that brings me on to my fourth point, which is review, reflect. Ray Dalio says this in his book Principles, and I call this like the business Bible. It's one of my favorite books in the world. I read it time and time again. He says, pain plus reflection equals progress. Pain plus reflection equals progress. Without the reflection, there is no progress. And I see a lot of people in this space who are like willing to take like 6 or 7 plus calls a day, but they don't give proper time and energy to actually reflect on those calls and what they can do better. So in the sports world, right? Like when I was an athlete in basketball, I remember my coach spent just as much time us, practicing and doing that. And he really encouraged us to do game review, like film tape, right? For anyone who's done sports, you understand this concept. You get in a room, you review a game that you guys played, and your coach will literally give you play-by-play or different scenarios of what you could have been doing better, what you did wrong, and you start to reflect on, okay, I did that wrong, I did that mistake, I did this good, let me double down on that, let me learn from that mistake, all these different things, right? And that in our world of sales is call reviews, right? And it doesn't mean that you need to sit down an hour every single day to do an end-to-end call review, right? A lot of this can be accomplished by, was my habit, was once a week I did a 60-minute call review. So I played a call from start to finish. I would take notes. I'd be super intentional. I'd be distraction-free. I'd be on my computer, and I would just lock in reviewing the different pieces. I would do that once a week. But in addition to that, throughout the week, I would 5, 10, 15 minutes when I had some time, I would also just play an actual call in the background. So I think that was my biggest mistake, was thinking I had to do like 3 or 4 one-hour call reviews every day. Now you can, if you really want to tie in that feedback loop, there might be a season for you where that makes sense. But the truth is, I just want to get my subconscious mind to get really good at this whole thing. So I wasn't always coming from a place of like, I had to do a bunch of call reviews, sitting down, taking notes. I would just cook dinner, go on a walk, right? Go on my morning commute, right? Maybe even at times when I was really obsessed, I would listen to calls while going to sleep. And it would just be like 5, 10, 15 minutes at a time. And usually it'd just be a specific piece of my game that I was actually listening to or working on improving. So if I was looking to really improve on my pitch, I would only listen to 5, 10 minutes of a pitch, right? And here's a tactic for you guys. You might want to write this down. Is it's not just what did I do wrong and what can I fix? Oftentimes it was, hey, what did I do right? Here's a winning call. Let me get in the energy and the spirit of winning. Let me actually review the things I did really well so I could double down and do that over and over and over again, right? That's a thing I believe a lot of sales reps only do is they only focus on the losing elements and what they can improve. Well, here's the truth, y'all. If you're not listening to what works, what is winning, you don't step into an ability and opportunity to actually build confidence that you're doing the right things. And it's hard for you to identify what is the right things for me to continue to double down on. So review is critical. Sometimes it's reviewing your own calls. Sometimes it's reviewing other people's calls that they're doing well, right? Sometimes it's listening to the top performer on your team or maybe a coach that he has some call reviews. You just listen to it. You review it. And I take a lot of intention into my review because it's so important for us to actually come from a place of reflection. And it doesn't just stop in call reviews. Oftentimes, it's just as simple as reflection via your journal or typing it down. Like, right, how do I feel? How's my physiology? How's my biology? How's my mental clarity? How's my inspiration? How do I feel about my offer? Right? Am I even in the right offer to begin with to help me get closer to my goals? So reflection is not just the call reviews. Reflection oftentimes is the journaling. And so those are the 4 key elements of being a sales athlete. Practice, the game, recovery, and review. This is a cycle in a way that allows you to tap truly into the rhythm that when you do this correctly, when you engineer this, not only do you show up to your full potential, but allows you to play this game in the long term, right? Could you imagine if Steph Curry stopped playing after his 2nd or 3rd year in basketball? Like the man didn't even get in his prime until about his 4th or 5th year. In fact, he's only truly like throughout his like year 5 to year 7, year 8, like he only really got better, right? And he allowed the long-term sustainable strategy to compound his skill set and results. I'm going to say that again. He allowed his long-term sustainable strategy and rhythms of practice, game, review, reflection, recovery. He used that to allow him to compound his wins every single season, every single year. And that's how he won championships over and over again. Because here's the truth, y'all. It's not enough to just be good 1 month or even 2 months or 3 months. You have to strive to be a top performer for months on end and years, right? The habit of being a winner, the habit of being a top performer on your team is a marathon, not a sprint. If you're a setter who wants to get promoted to a closer, one of the things that I look for is, hey, what's the historics? How long have you been a top performer? How long have you been a winner? It's not enough to just win 1 month or 2 months and then go to your sales manager or business owner and say, hey, I'm ready to become a closer or I'm ready to be an AE. No. I'm looking for minimum at least 90 days of consistent top performance and winning. Minimum. Ideally more. And the only way that you achieve that is through having a long-term strategy, a long-term rhythm that leads you to have top performance time and time again. And I realized, man, this isn't really taught. I had to learn this by myself. And that's why I wanted to, record more training like this, y'all, because we lose a lot of good performers, a lot of good salespeople to burnout. I was almost one of those people. I remember in 2022, after a couple of years in this profession, I was like, dude, do I even want to do sales anymore? Am I even good at this thing? Like your own self-doubt and your own negative thinking becomes your worst enemy and you start to self-sabotage. And it literally took me months to want to get back into full swing of being a top performer. I'm being very candid and honest with you guys. There were times where I was like, I don't even want to take a sales call. Like gosh, the idea of me hopping on 6+ calls today is like so draining. I don't even know if I want this career. But I got over that through a beautiful season of recovery when I went on my sabbatical, right? And even then, it was still a transition period. It still took a couple months after transitioning out of that rest period, the recovery period, to like go back to it, right? And so that's really one of the biggest things is like understand the sales athlete framework. Understand that we want to be in this in the long term. Understand those 4 phases that when you engineer your own rhythms, that's where the magic really happens, right? That's where the magic happens. So I want to bring that, the sales athlete framework. Number 2, write this down, is understand your pivot points. Understand your pivot points. So everyone's rhythm is going to be different, y'all. Why it's important to understand your rhythm is because when you understand your own rhythm, meaning you're not trying to copy and paste someone else's rhythm, energetic rhythms, you actually engineer and design how you work best. I think a lot of people try to do like these 90-day sprints only to realize that they haven't trained up the skill set to work in 90-day sprints. In fact, to be honest, you might only be able to work on a 3 or 4 week sprint. Maybe it's only 2, who knows, right? What I have found and what I will share with you guys is the longer you're in this game, the more attuned you will be to your own personal rhythms. And when you understand your personal rhythms, you can design a push or pull week accordingly, a push or pull week accordingly. So I actually got this from Taylor Welch from Traffic and Funnels. This is not something that I made, but let me define this for you guys. So a push week is when you've decided, okay, I'm going to go super hard this week, meaning you might be taking double the sales call volume that you usually take. So if your baseline is taking 4 calls a day, you might be pushing for 6 to 7 calls per day for that week, right? So a push week is when you're like, all right, let me strap up. I'm going to take longer hours. I'm going to like make sure my routines are ready to die down. I'm going to say no to distractions. I might not go out, the next weekend. I might just stay in and like rest up. You've engineered that week to truly be one of just like production, volume, pushing, right? And why that's really important is because it allows you to actually build momentum. You build momentum, you get maybe double the closes. You might hit a PR in closes that week. And it allows you to gain traction accordingly, right? So when you're allowing yourself to like push and go and go and go, you can do that temporarily. So there's a finite period of time where your energy, once you've tuned in, you know that you can do this for maybe a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks, depending on your energetic rhythm, right? And allows you to properly build up the momentum because momentum in this game is everything. Momentum in this game is everything. When you allow yourself to properly align and be congruent with your rhythm, that's where you know, okay, cool. I pushed for about 4 weeks. It's time for me now to tone it back. And that's what we go into what we call a pull week. So let me define a pull week now. A pull week is when there's a little bit more rest and recovery, right? You've actually engineered your week to maybe end the day a little bit earlier. Maybe you allow yourself to have some like chill time on the weekend. Maybe you go on a mini vacation, you go in the cabin in the woods, whatever it is, right? Whatever your rest and recovery might be. Maybe you go get a massage, a spa, whatever it might be. You'll better understand this as you do this more and more. But a pull week is really engineered for you to then recover, right? Actually rejuvenate, actually recover, actually get some rest. And while here's the thing, what you'll notice is you might not get as many closes and deals that week. Here's what you will do. You'll give yourself some grace. Be like, hey man, I just came out of 2 weeks of pushing. I hit a bunch of new records. I've hit an all-time record month in revenue this month. Now it's time for me to actually rejuvenate and rest so that I can properly reposition myself for my full potential again. Because guys, if we were robots, we were AI, we were like Facebook ads, sure, we can keep pushing. But here's the truth. We're humans. And we have to act accordingly. I think one of the most foolish things is to not understand what our body is telling us, what our energy is telling us. And I want to give you permission right here that it's okay to go into rest and recovery. It's okay to not succumb to the grind culture, hustle mindset that you see on the internet and on these motivational quotes. While it might rah-rah and feel good in the moment, here's where it doesn't feel good is when you're tired, you're exhausted, and you allow what should have been a 2 or 3 day sales slump to be a 2 to 3 week sales slump, or even worst case, even more. Why sales slumps happen, y'all, is because you've properly not engineered and designed rest and recovery into your routines. So let me give you a live example. I know that personally I work best in like these 6-week sprints. So I push hard for 4 weeks, and then I have like these pull weeks about 1 to 2 weeks, right? And I do these cycles about twice within a quarter. Now, you do the math, in a quarter, there's 12 weeks, right? 3 months, 4 weeks in each month, so you have 12 weeks. So I engineer myself to have 2 6-week sprints within a quarter. 4 weeks where I'm really on, 2 weeks where I'm resting and recovering, 4 weeks where I'm really on, and then 2 weeks of rest and recovery. And I try to really engineer these pivot points during the quarter, the beginning of the quarter, to rest and take a full week off for vacation. Now, guys, vacation might be a dirty word for you, right? You might be in a position where you're like, dude, never will take a vacation. I'm not in that. I don't need that. I remember I did that for like 3.5 years, and I was like, dude, that was probably the stupidest thing I could ever think. Right? Dumb. So for us, what's really important is like we engineer this just as much as we're engineering when we're going to produce, when we're going to go hard. We have to engineer when we're coming from a place of like, hey, I need some rest. I need some recovery. So right now, you guys have found me in the day before I go on vacation. And I feel great and also exhausted at the same time because my confidence is like I've gone through this cycle of burnout a few times and also a cycle of like push, grind, hustle. And I'm learning. I was like, wow, I've literally engineered this vacation before Q1 even started. I designed this vacation back in December of 2023. It's April of 2024 right now. I designed and planned ahead. I was like, I'm going to take a vacation at this time in April. And just through data, through feedback from the past, through my historics, through going wrong, I understood I could actually create a proper pivot point where I know when I get out of this week-long vacation, I'm going to be re-energized. I'm going to be back in action. I'm going to be rested, and I'm going to be ready to tackle it and go ahead for another sprint, another push season, right? But because I've had the data and the feedback from the past, when my energetic rhythms are, I know I'm here for the long term, and I can properly position this marathon, this game of sales that is a marathon, properly and appropriately. So I'm excited because it's like, man, I can properly just unplug during this week. I'm not bringing my laptop. I'm going to rest, recover. I'm going to reflect. I'm going to spend some good time with good friends. I'm going to go to California, right? I'm in New York City right now. I'm going to get away from the cold and the wind, and I'm going to get in some nice heat, get in the beach, and just allow my body to rest, recover, and rejuvenate. Gosh, just the sound of that as I say it sounds so good. Like, I'm so excited for y'all. But this could only come from being properly engineered designed, because before it was more of a reactive things like, I need a vacation. And then you take a spontaneous vacation and you don't fully rest. You maybe get 60 or 70% of the way there, but you still come back kind of energized, but then kind of not, because your mind was still in business. Your mind was still in work, and you didn't allow your body to fully rest. So that's the thing, is I had to give myself permission to get grace, right? I'm coming from a really strong March and February. And hey, there might be a tiny setback in results or performance. Sure, that's okay. My sales team might perform a little bit less, right? My projects might not be making as much progress as I want, but I'm not getting frustrated about that. I'm not getting overwhelmed about that. I'm giving myself proper grace and proper rest. So this is my call to action for you guys is allow yourself rest. Allow yourself recovery. It's okay. It's okay. Because it's not about just getting profits, y'all. It's about having the equal balance of peace in your life. It's peace and profits. That's how you create a long-term winning career. It's peace and profits. So that's really it, y'all. That's what I wanted to share with you guys. Let me know if you guys actually like these type of raw, more like just long form video. If you guys do, I'll post more content on this, just really coming from the dome and just going straight off the heart and what's coming up for me. So let me know what you guys got taken away from that. Now, my call to action for you guys is really simple, right? My call to action is simple. In the comments below, drop your number one takeaway that you got from this video, because I want to hear, okay, what lessons did you guys get, right? Drop that takeaway. If you guys aren't following me already, please drop me a follow. If you're seeing this for the first time, you never know who I am. Drop me a follow on Twitter, on Instagram, my social media, wherever you find this. Just drop a follow, because I want to deliver not just training and tactics on sales, but I want to give you guys a philosophy and principles on life and how to live a long-term sustainable career in sales and in business. Because guys, it's a career. This is not just a get-rich-quick scheme. This is not just a biz opportunity. This is a career, if you choose to do so. If you choose to commit to that long-term, right? So that being said, guys, drop me a follow, drop me a like, drop me a comment. I'll see you guys in the next video. And until then, sayonara. Sensei out. Cheers.